Today, we are going to tackle something that is, well, it's incredibly difficult. We're talking about how to set boundaries with a manipulative person and how to do it without that crushing weight of guilt that always seems to follow.
Have you ever heard something like this before? It's a classic. It's a line that is so perfectly crafted to flip everything on its head. It makes you question your own sanity, doesn't it? It takes your genuine feelings and puts the blame for them right back on you, making any boundary you try to set feel just selfish.
So here's the idea I want us to really explore today. What if that power they seem to have over you, that guilt they're so good at triggering, what if it isn't really power at all? What if it's just a shield, an illusion they've built to hide their own deep, profound fear?
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the unseen fear to understand what's really driving them. Then we'll talk about when the fog lifts, that moment of clarity for you. We'll get into the practical stuff with the vocabulary of power and the art of disengagement. And we'll finish up with a powerful idea, your silent rebellion.
Okay, first things first. If you want to set a guilt-free boundary, you have to do something that feels unnatural. You have to stop trying to understand their behavior through your own empathetic worldview. Instead, you need to understand their internal operating system.
Now, this is a really important distinction because we tend to think they're clinging, their rage, their manipulation. It's all because they're terrified of being abandoned. And yeah, that fear might be in there somewhere, but it's not the main event. It's not their number one terror. This is it. This is the absolute heart of the matter. Their deepest, most primal fear is that you, the person who has the front row seat to their life, will finally see right through the act. That you'll see the emptiness they work so hard to cover up. Your clarity, that is the real threat.
And this is why. They need something called narcissistic supply. Think of it like this. They don't have an internal battery to power their self-worth. They have to plug into an external source. And that source is you, your reactions, whether it's admiration or fear or anger or even your pain. It all serves the same purpose. It proves to them that they exist, that they have an impact on the world.
And you know, what's so wild about this is they picked you because of your best qualities. They were drawn to your warmth, your emotional depth, your empathy, all the things they lack. They saw in you a genuine light that they could only pretend to have. They needed you to regulate themselves, and on some level, they resented you for having something so real that they could never truly possess.
So now, let's shift the focus to you. That feeling of constant confusion, that sense that you're always walking on eggshells, that's not a sign that you're failing. It's the first glimmer of light. It's the sign that the fog is starting to lift.
This awakening, it's a process. It starts with confusion, right? You notice their words don't line up with their actions, but you tell yourself you must be imagining things. Then comes discernment. You can't deny the patterns anymore. You see the cycle of them pulling you close and pushing you away. And finally, you arrive at detachment. This is when their old tricks, the guilt trips, the sudden explosions of affection, they just don't land anymore. You're not a participant in the drama. You're becoming an observer.
And that's the whole thing, isn't it? The second you can watch their performance without feeling that familiar pull to jump on stage with them, you're already winning. That bond is breaking. And this isn't you becoming cold or unfeeling. It's your own spirit, your own mind finally protecting itself with the truth.
All right, let's get into some real practical tools. The very first step in setting a boundary out there in the world is to build one inside your own head. And that starts with the words you use.
This looks like such a small change, but believe me, it is huge. When you say, "You make me feel bad," you've literally just handed them the keys to your emotional state. But when you switch that to, "I feel bad," you are stating an undeniable fact about your own internal world. You're taking your power back.
So why does this one little word make such a difference? Well, they can argue with you all day long about what they made you feel. But they cannot argue with what you feel. It's your truth. It's non-negotiable. And by making that switch, you take away their favorite little remote control. They can no longer just push a button and get a guaranteed reaction. You've disarmed the trap. So once you start to reclaim your internal language, you can then begin to reclaim your physical space. This is all about learning one simple truth. You do not have to RSVP to every argument you're invited to. When the conversation starts going in circles or gets mean, you have every right to leave. And the key is to do it gracefully. You just state your boundary, calmly. Something like, "I'm not going to continue this conversation right now," and then, this is the hard part, you stop talking.
No justifying, no arguing, no explaining, because any explanation you offer is just more fuel for their fire. You state it, and then you physically walk away.
And as you're walking away, try to hold this image in your mind, the Mona Lisa smile. It's that look of serene detachment. You're not storming out in a rage, you're not crying, you are just calm, unreadable. It's a look that says, my peace is not up for debate. It gives them absolutely nothing to latch onto.
This is so incredibly important to remember. They will absolutely try to frame your withdrawal as a punishment. They'll accuse you of giving them the silent treatment. But you have to reframe this for yourself. Your silence is not a weapon you're using against them. It is a shield you are using to protect yourself. Which brings us to the final and maybe the most powerful boundary of all. And it's not about big, loud confrontations. It's about quiet creation. Your silent rebellion is about turning your attention completely inward. Think about all of that energy you've spent analyzing them, trying to manage their moods, defending yourself. And imagine pouring all of that, every last drop, back into your own life. It's about organizing your finances, calling that friend you lost touch with, starting that hobby you always talked about. It's about methodically building a life so full and so joyful that there's just no space left for their chaos.
Because really, that's what it all comes down to. That's the end game. The most powerful, unbreachable boundary you can ever build is a life that is so authentically and happily yours that they can't get a foothold. Your healing, your joy, those are things they can never, ever touch.
I really want you to let this one sink in for a minute. Your best qualities, your empathy, your kindness, your ability to truly connect, those were never the problem. They were the answer. They were the solution to the emptiness inside of them, but it was a solution their own brokenness just couldn't accept. It was easier to tear you down than to let your light in. So as we wrap this up, just remember this. Setting a boundary is not an act of meanness. It's an act of self-respect. It's you standing at the gate of your own inner world and calmly deciding what you will and will not allow inside.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. For so long, your role was to be their audience, to be their power source. But that role is over now. And in its place, there's this huge open space. All of that energy is now yours. The spotlight is on you. So, what are you going to do with it?
If this resonated, you aren't alone. Subscribe to join the space where we decode them together. I'll see you in the next one.